So Reggie, it's wonderful to meet you here this way on this morning. So thanks for joining me for our Learn to Listen series.
Thank you for welcoming me. It's great to actually finally get a conversation with you.
No, it's awesome. We know each other, and the social media gives us this platform to know of each other. So I'm looking forward. Maybe sometime when I come back home to the DC area, we can get together.
That would be awesome.
Beautiful family. Yeah, be wonderful. Well, Reggie, I'd love for you to share a bit just about your dance background and training, and just your involvement in dance, and then we'll jump into some other questions because I know that people watching this, many will know you, but there'll be others that you're new to them. So Please share.
Okay, wonderful. So I have a very interesting story of being a professional dancer, in that I started very late. I started dancing professionally around the age of 25, 26. I started my training in Vaganova technique in an adult community dance program at the Kiroff Academy in DC. I also took several different styles of modern dance, dance plays, joy of motion, had the opportunity to take class with a lot of wonderful master teachers like Milton Myers, Kevin Jeff, worked with some dance instructors that were actually doing double duty, not only teaching in community studios, but they were also professors in other dance programs. So I danced locally and had the opportunity to do touring with a few different companies. And some of the places where I've been given the opportunity to travel and dance have been Poland, Lithuania, and Russia, and St. Petersburg. And of course, the Kennedy Center here in DC, and many other places in Philadelphia, the Painted Bride in New York, and so on. So yeah.
That's a beautiful, rich career. That's so wonderful. And then were you brought up in the church? How did your faith and your artistry intersect?
Well, I was raised in church. My mom was a gospel musician as well as a seamstress. My dad was a deacon and a Sunday school teacher. And so I just basically, church has been my entire life. So I would say that I came into my own personal relationship with Jesus around the age of 7, when I articulated to both my parents that I had a desire to be baptized. And I was clearly aware of the void that I needed to fill with no one else but Jesus in my heart. And then that's when I would say my journey as a Christian really began.
That's wonderful. Well, you were sharing with me about how you're involved today with dance. Can you share more about that? Just where your faith and your artistry and all of that's, intersecting and serving.
Well, the thing that's interesting about the journey that I've had with dance, I would say that dance really became something close to my heart at a very early age. My nickname from nursery school was Dancing Man, because my teacher would always see me bopping around and dancing and doing things. When I was at home with my sisters in particular on Saturdays, I would make them get in the den with me and learn dance moves, and we'd create little routines together. And so there was always something joyous and something bubbling on the inside, but I never gave it a name or really knew what it was until one afternoon, my dad and I were sitting in front of TV, and a PBS special came on, and it was one of the Masters of the Arts series or something like that. And Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater was being featured in this televised program, and they were showing Revelations. And I had a moment when I saw Dudley Williams on the floor doing the solo to I Want to Be Ready. And something in my spirit said, this is what I'm going to be doing. And I'm going to be on stage in front of many people when I get older. And I just tucked that away in my heart because, it was awesome. It was wonderful. It was beautiful. but there was clearly a message that God was resonating within me that
Hmm.
kind of gave me a foreshadow of things to come. And so when I got older, I had a friend in elementary school that was taking dance classes at a local studio. I followed her to class, and the teacher allowed me, after seeing me, escorting my friend to dance class, like, why don't you take class? And I thought, well, why not? And so after I took class, I realized how much I really enjoyed it. It was a jazz class. It was
Hmm.
the first, at the age of 11, the first technical training that I had experienced. And I was like, I need to do this. And
Mm.
so I talked to my parents, and they allowed me to continue to take class for, a couple of years. And then I was not able to continue, but I still kept up with the training that I did get in class. I would always be dancing in the basement. I would
Huh.
do stretches and things that I learned in class. And after college, I, you know, did all of that. And I realized I needed to do something different with my life. And that different thing was to follow the pursuit that God had tucked away in my heart all those years ago. And so at this time, I'm like 23, 24. So I start taking as many dance classes as I can. And then I get up the nerve by the age of 25 to start auditioning, because I knew, having gone away to school, I went to school in Indiana, that I knew where home was for me. So I wasn't going to leave the DMV. I knew that I needed to pursue this because this was something that God had given me to do. And so I looked for opportunities right in the area, and there were opportunities, and that's how I began to bloom. Just bloom where you're planted. So
That's gorgeous.
yeah.
Well, that's so lovely. Just knowing, um, and that's a part of the listening. Do you know? We'll keep getting to that part. So now today you're involved with dance ministry, um, teaching and leading. What are some of those active ways today?
So I am less active in dance ministry now compared to when I started.
Okay.
Um, Dance ministry was a part of my training because I did train with other dancers in church while I was pursuing professionally dance training to be equipped for the stage.
Yes.
So I did a lot of dance conferences. I did a lot of sharing and learning with other ministers of dance and people that were in that circle. And so my network expanded pretty rapidly and pretty quickly between dancing with people in church and dancing with people in the dance community. And my role now is I have been a board member with the Maryland Council for Dance for several years now. And so I am more energized on the administrative and business side of making festivals and opportunities for younger generations happen than I am actively dancing myself, even though I still do that. So yeah.
Yeah. And that's totally a part of the natural transition, right? As we age and the legs used to get up to here and now they're
Right.
down to here.
Yeah.
We just realize that we grow in wisdom and we've got a lot of wisdom to share.
Yes.
So that's a beautiful way to be a part. So you alluded to listening to God and having that part where it just, he tucked and treasured
Yeah.
this just wonderful morsel within you. What are other ways you've cultivated an active relationship to listen to God, to listen to the voice of God? Or like, sometimes I say, just listening to your body, or just
Mhm.
knowing that God is communing with you and speaking to you.
Well, that's a wonderful question, because I think for someone or anyone that's listening to this conversation like me who's grown up in church, you've grown up and got used to a culture of things. You got used to the routine of, that you go to Sunday school, you go to midweek Bible study, you do all of these other preparatory things in the process. And so that becomes a part of your lifestyle. But listening still is a skill that has to be developed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I find that remaining teachable is the most important thing. Realize that there's always something to know and something to learn
Mm-hmm.
beyond what you've been exposed to. becoming more of an observer and less reactive to
Mm-hmm.
all of the different experiences and things around you also helps to make listening a little deeper
Yes.
and a little clearer,
Yeah.
so that you're not distracted by your own opinions and thoughts and things, reactions happening in the moment. Keeping a journal,
Mm.
being intentional about slowing down and reflecting on
Mm.
the experiences that you're having and on the thoughts that keep repeating and surfacing.
Yeah.
And then finally, prayer.
Mm.
Because prayer is not just talking, it's also listening.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't pray without expecting an answer. So the expectation prompts you to listen.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the main things that I would say actually cultivate a good listening ear spiritually as well as in communication with others.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. Yeah, I'd have to admit that the reflection part is
Yes.
something that I'm getting better at.
Yeah.
I am such a doer, and I'm just in action and emotion.
Yeah.
And to take those moments or hours or just reflective times wherever that might be, for me, often it's just walking. When I'm walking, I'm communing. But it really is important. It really is vital.
Yeah. I had a paradigm shift. I would say after Zion was born, he was born in 2008. So I would say maybe a couple of years after, God just arrested me with this um, understanding performance-based spirituality, because
Mm.
like they were always doing.
Mm-hmm.
We can get used to doing church, but not actually, and being involved in church, but not allowing the space in the room for God to be involved with us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had reached a point where I was just busy going, and doing, because I'm teaching, which means I'm traveling and going from class to class, sometimes back to back. I'm doing the fitness thing, so I have clients and I have sessions, and then I have everything that work requires and everything that family life requires. And so I'm just so busy doing that God had to slow me down,
Mm-hmm.
and did. And he made it clear to me, you know, you're mine.
Yeah.
But I need to spend time with you.
Yeah.
I need you to spend time with me.
Yeah.
And so it became less about the doing,
Yeah.
and more about being.
Yeah.
And when I got that message clearly and I started taking the steps to be more present with the Lord in my personal time and my prayer time, my prayer life really changed a lot. One. And then two, the time that I spent with the Lord, it caused me to realize that I needed to um, give a little more close attention to priorities. You know, there are urgent expectations because people know that you dance, they know that you choreograph, they know that you're capable, they know that you're reliable. They're going to pull at you to do a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
And so the healthy boundary that I started realizing that I needed to implement in my life was learning to say no.
Mm-hmm.
Because saying yes to God means that you have to say no to other things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so true.
You can't do everything all at once.
Yeah.
And so in hindsight, I realized that all of those little nuggets and all of those moments with God were preparing me for the things that I'm doing now.
Mm-hmm.
And he was helping me realize the turn that I needed to make in my own path with him, so that I could keep in step with the Spirit and walk in the ways that he has already predestined for the gifts that he's given.
Yeah.
And he's shown me so much that in addition to the gifts and the talents and the abilities that he's invested in me, he's also shown me, well, you spent a lot of time growing and developing too in your own way.
Yeah.
But he wants to use all of me for his glory.
Yeah.
And I have to make room for him to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Gorgeous. Come on. It's so true. And I think the very things that we as Christians long for, it is that personal connection. It's that time and the intimacy. And we're just in this instant gratification world. Yeah. We as dancers, it's about achieving the next thing. Either, you know, how can I get one more turn, you know, refined, the choreographic results and not always the process. So it's just wonderful words to remember that it's not always about the end result.
Yeah.
And as I'm growing older, I'll be 57 next month. I'm learning that actually the process is so much more important than what the outcome is, because the outcomes really come from that process.
That's true. And the wisdom and the other aspects of being able to share with others is not the result. It comes through the process. Yeah.
It's so true. It's so true. Again, it's a good affirmation and a reminder. So thank you, because again, in the performing arts, it's about the output and
because we do have to perform.
Sure. And well,
and perform well. And so, that's all noble, but it doesn't have to conflict with the inner life of the spirit that desires for us to mature and to sanctify ourselves and to grow. And that part is process. It's not perfection, it's progress. We're progressing daily as we make these new next steps with God along the journey. So
that's beautiful. Just so rich. Well, you've really alluded to, I believe, some leadership qualities to cultivate in that listening. But as you've refined some of those in your life and potentially are still in that refining process, what leadership qualities have you found to be most helpful, or what would you encourage others to obtain and discipline?
Okay, so to speak to that, I came up with about 3 different points to focus on with regard to cultivating leadership. First and foremost is communication. Communication for us spiritually is prayer life, and moving from the aspect of just talking to God like a to-do list, but really having an intimate conversation where you allow him to be involved and let him show you yourself and show you where he is looking to use you in the grand scheme of things. Find a mentor. Find someone that can pour into you, because as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that cultivates good listening is remaining teachable. So we learn from one another, and it's good to engage with others that have been where we are or know where we are and can help us see the blind spots that we don't necessarily see in the moment because we're so busy or we're so in the middle of what we're dealing with. We don't see what someone else might see that has wisdom. And then the third and very most important thing is setting healthy boundaries. To cultivate good leadership, you have to know your own limitations so that you don't overextend yourself, but yet you have the wherewithal to be observant, to recognize the skill and the talent in others, so that you're not being so self-sufficient that you're not including people in this, whatever you're doing. Leadership is not about doing it all. Leaders need support too. Leaders need to learn too. And so if you have no one following you, you're not leading anyway. It's just a title. So we have to communicate in a way that shows that we have respect, not just for the abilities of others, but for them and the value that they bring to the table as well. So setting healthy boundaries in particular, knowing when you have too much on your plate, knowing when to say no, and having the courage to delegate and step down from some things, take some things off your plate by evaluating what's urgent versus what's really important. We have to focus on the important things, but we can delegate some of those urgent things. So we don't feel that we're being pulled in so many directions all at once and unable to get past the feeling of overwhelmed to accomplish something.
Because then we get paralyzed, right? When you get to that place where you're feeling overwhelmed and overworked, that it's like paralysis.
Yes.
And then we can, and it might be emotional, it might be mental, sometimes it's just cognitive, you know, you can't even think clearly because the fiery synapses aren't, you know, firing.
Yeah.
They're clogged.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are good words and good reminders. So as you're looking at this world of dance and just in general, having been around the globe and being in this really metropolitan area in DC, describing what DMV is for people, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, there's a lot happening, very progressive things happening. How are you seeing, I don't know, I guess the climate of the arts, or how is God moving in particular in the world of the arts or in dance? Just would love your take on coming from your heritage, what you've seen and where we are now, and maybe even projecting where do you feel like we're going?
Well, I'm encouraged and cautious at the same time. I have a measured outlook when it comes to that, because I think there are a lot of interesting and wonderful things happening, but I also think with all the interesting and wonderful things happening, there are things that we should constantly be mindful about. And when I look at the way God is using people in dance, I'm encouraged that there's more boldness, and there's a level of confidence that I see in children of God who are artists, and resolving that conflict, that you don't have to be two different things, that they can coexist, and you can be in the marketplace, or you can be in the sanctuary, wherever you do your art, and still represent the Spirit of God. It's really encouraging to see more of that, to see more people expressing that, and there's room for that. We just have to not be timid about it, but not be arrogant about it either. Yeah.
And as you know, you have friends, I'm sure, you know, that have gone in and through Ailey, that are there now, others in New York dancing in professional careers, or out in LA, or just, you know, or even globally. And I agree that we're seeing, I just spoke with somebody this morning, a sweet little, I don't mean to put that in a negative way, but a beautiful young woman who is trying to sort out her career and calling, and to be able to articulate that, you know, for 30 plus years, I've been doing this, and now seeing how through the generations of God's faithfulness, but it's growing exceedingly abundantly beyond what I could have imagined back then, when I felt like, oh gosh, I think I'm the only person on the planet that is dancing and is connecting faith. And that was so naive, but I just didn't have those connections. But as you're saying, you know, there's just more and more people now that do have a strong foundation in their faith, and have a strong technical foundation, and are being recognized in the world. And others that obviously are being recognized in their church arena, or wherever it is, that sphere of influence is happening. It's amazing what is being done now compared to
Really is. And more so for the practitioners and the artists in these companies. I believe that God is making a shift within the co-workers that, you know, are, you know, for me, for example, being a child of God and being a professional dancer, you know, I'm coming from 11 a.m. service and going straight into rehearsal with people. So they already know that something's different. It's like, well, we've been here since 10 o'clock, and this, that, and the other. You're just, because I worship God, and I'm not going to compromise my worship for my art.
Right.
And I articulate that. You know, for some that can be a point of conflict, but for me, it's not. And I just, you know, where you are is where you are, and where God has me is where God has me. And I still give 110% when I go into the rehearsal room, because I'm not, I work for them, but I work as unto the Lord,
Right.
because I'm giving whatever I put my hands to do wholeheartedly, because that's what he requests and what he demands of me.
Right.
And many, many years later, those little gospel seeds, those moments like that,
Yes.
they resonate with those who weren't going to church, who had no desire to do anything with God, because I was faithful to my walk into what I believe God wanted, how God wanted me to live, basically. And even now, Cynthia, I was able to reconnect with some of the cast members that I used to dance with. And one gentleman who rededicated himself to the Lord, I didn't realize that he had this conversion experience, but now, you know, through the Spirit of Christ and through, you know, the technology of being on Facebook, we're able to pray together and have conversations regularly now that didn't happen 20 years ago when we were in the studio. So you never know at what point, you know, people are with this decision for salvation and turning to the Lord. But God has us as lights to all of these people so that they know that, you know, Jesus is real. You know, this life in the Spirit is real, and they can partake and be a part of it too. God's arms are open, you know. So it's important for us as professional dancers who have been, you know, called by God, to not be shy about your faith walk. Like I say, I don't shove it and preach in front of people's face, but you know, if I have Bible study on Wednesday night and they're going out for drinks, you know, I'm going to Bible study. You want to come with me? Or let me tell you about what I learned in this, that, and the other.
Yes.
It's that simple, you know.
Sure.
And that resonates with some people because they've never had that experience. Some people have never had anyone invite them or talk to them about spiritual things, and that's just a new territory for them. You know? So yeah.
That's so good, and a good reminder again. It's that faithfulness, the stick-to-itiveness, the consistency, just the longevity of the journey. And I don't throw verses out there just to be kitschy reminders, you know, but it just really, there's something true about how he works all things together for the good.
He really does.
I used to think, my interpretation was that he'd work the bad things out for the good. And then I got a little wiser and realized, oh no, it's the good things that he works for the good as well. And just as you're speaking, it's so clear that that faithfulness, people see and watch and observe.
They're watching.
Yeah, they are watching.
Yeah.
They are watching. And so it just gives us, I think, a little, you know, nudge in our shoulder, a kick in our bahootie, you know, to make sure that we really are following Christ and being like Christ and conforming to that image as much as we possibly can. And yes, we make errors and fall short. How quick are we to apologize, and how quick are we to realign? And yeah, it's lovely. So in closing, I just would love for you to share any other nuggets of truth or things that you know that are valuable to you that you want to pass along.
Sure. So, and as we close our conversation, I was just reflecting on Proverbs 4:23, to guard your heart diligently, for if from it flows the issues of life. And from the heart, there's so many things that I experienced that I didn't realize that unforgiveness and resentment had the grip and hold at one point in my spiritual walk that it did. But, you know, God, you know, brought that to light and in me through this shift and this turning that I talked about earlier in my prayer life, as I redirected my focus from doing to just being in his presence and allowing him to be involved with me. He started showing me many things that were still unresolved and left, and I was just carrying. And so these three things I think would be really helpful to anyone in general, but in particular, for those that are in our field that are, doing this and grinding at it daily, avoid comparing yourself to someone else's version of success.
Okay.
Okay, that's the first thing. Be patient with yourself and with the process God is taking you through. There are no shortcuts to wisdom, to maturity or sanctification. This is something that we walk out daily, and God is with you.
Yeah.
And then the third thing is, don't be afraid to be different.
Mm-hmm.
We find appreciation and we are in awe of the many different abilities and results that other people can deliver. But don't make that your benchmark.
Yes.
You have to grow at your pace. Your pace is your pace. You're not going to get there any faster.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope that encourages someone listening as they, reflect on listening, reflect on leadership, reflect on what type of leader do you want to be? Mm-hmm. And what type of artist do you feel God is calling you to be?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, this has made my whole day and probably my week. This time with you. Just what a wonderful perspective you have. And so such a gorgeous orator and so articulate and clear to know how God has been communing with you and just the values that you have. And I'm just really excited for people to be able to hear what you have to share, because it's so important and packed with lots of words of wisdom. So thank you for this time. I appreciate it.
Very welcome. And I look forward to getting more acquainted when you're able to come back to DMV.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. I'll make sure to let you know, maybe a little bit later in the year, but I'll keep you posted, and hopefully we could get together and maybe do something together. It'd be wonderful. So I'll make sure whatever way you want me to have you to have access to people, that we put that in this information, if it's via Facebook or whatever, we can make sure, because I'm sure there'll be questions and people who are excited to get to know you and to learn more from you, to sit under you and listen.
Well, thank you again for this opportunity. It was wonderful sitting and talking with you today.
You as well, my friend. God bless you.
Bless you.